This is just going to come from the heart.
You are Locked On Syracuse, your daily podcast on the Syracuse Orange. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Remember the stages of grief? Remember that podcast that we all did when it was announced that Adrian Autry is expected to be back with Syracuse basketball? And on that podcast, we went through the stages of grief in order. Now, I don't know about you all, but after this game, I can just skip right to depression. Syracuse basketball loses at SMU 77-75. Hi, everyone. I'm Jackson Holzer. This is Locked On Syracuse, and thank you for making Locked On Syracuse your first listen of every single day here on the Locked On Podcast Network. It's your team every day, and we are always free and available wherever you get your podcasts. And of course, there's always going to be a post-game reaction podcast, win, lose, or draw. And I can confidently tell you all, at least from my perspective, that this is the most depressed I have ever felt after a Syracuse loss since taking over this channel all the way back in February of 2024. And Syracuse basketball has lost games, of course, since then, and we do Syracuse football recaps as well. In the losses for Syracuse football, at least, I was one of two things. I was either angry when they lost to Stanford and when they lost to Boston College. I was in shock when they got throttled by Pitt. I wasn't really depressed. I was just shocked. I mean, that was just an awful game. It was their real stinker in 2024. And for Syracuse basketball, at least for this season, most of the time, I kind of just throw my arms up in the air after a loss because it's like Groundhog Day. It's like, yeah, it's the same talking points. They stink at defense. They don't get secondary scoring when JJ is going. And when JJ is not going, I'd love to hear from you in the comments section below. This is not really going to be an X's and O's breakdown of the game of basketball. It's just not. I'm sorry. This team is breaking me. To be quite honest, they're breaking me. I cannot believe that Syracuse basketball managed to lose again. They had this game, ladies and gentlemen. Let's set the scene for you all, okay? Syracuse basketball, at this point of the season, well, now they have one game left in the regular season. That's on Saturday against Virginia. They're really only playing for ACC tournament seeding. See, they're in the conference tournament. Hip, hip, hooray. Like they avoided the complete disaster. That's good. That's the bare minimum, really. So they're just playing for seeding. That's all these games matter. And they can't even get up to top 9. So, you want to be 10, you want to be 11 maybe. I don't know. But that's what you're playing for. You're playing for seeding. It matters still. What's SMU playing for? Well, they're trying to get in the NCAA tournament at large. Before the game, ESPN's Joe Lunardi, I understand that he is not perfect with his bracketology, but he had SMU, I believe, in his next 4 out category. So they're not too far off from being in at-large contention. SMU, before the game, they know that they cannot do anything in this game to enhance their resume. Nobody is going to care if they beat Syracuse on their home floor because that's what they are supposed to do. If SMU had lost this game, that is a quad 3 loss, and SMU is quite literally knocked out of at-large contention. You cannot suffer a quad 3 loss at this point in the year on the bubble and expect to make the NCAA tournament. You can't, especially for a team like SMU that has 0 quad 1 wins all year. So yeah, they have this great record. They haven't beaten anybody. Seriously, they've beaten nobody all year. So that's what's at stake here. And for a while, in fact, for 38 of the 40 minutes, Syracuse basketball was the better team. For 38 of 40 minutes, they were better than SMU. Multiple times in this game, they had double-digit leads. And every single time it felt like SMU was going to punch back and they were going to surge ahead of Syracuse. The Orange would counter them. There was a moment in the second half where SMU gets within 4 points and Adrian Autry calls timeout. It was a really smart timeout. There was about 12 minutes left, and Syracuse responds after that timeout by scoring 5 straight points to reopen the lead. They were the better team. But notice how this whole time I've been saying for the first 38 minutes. See, college basketball games are 40 minutes long. And if there's a tie after 40 minutes, guess what, ladies and gentlemen? This ain't soccer or football. There's overtime. And if for some reason the score isn't settled in a 5-minute overtime, there's another overtime. And SMU was the better team in the final 2 minutes. And they managed to win the game with just a few seconds left. It's 75-75. There's 17 seconds on the clock. Boopy Miller misses a shot inside, but they get a tip in with a few seconds to go to make it 77-75. JJ Starling makes a great move up court. He gets a decent enough look. I mean, you can criticize Autry for not calling timeout, but he got a decent enough look. And he nearly puts it in, which would have won the game. Now, that would have been March Madness, ladies and gentlemen. That's March. But it rims out. And SMU escapes with a win. Credit to SMU. They find a way to stay alive, because if they don't win this game, they would have had to win the ACC tournament to make the NCAA tournament, which, you know what that means, folks? They'd be watching March Madness on their couch, just like you and I. But now, at least they give themselves some sort of chance to get in with an at-large bid. And Syracuse, on the other hand, doesn't get to move up in seeding, and they blow another double-digit lead for the 3rd straight game. It's heartbreaking because they played hard. They played with effort. They played with passion. They tried their butts off, and they did not get the result. And it stinks. And it's just been a nightmare of a season. Not fun, right? Not fun. Once again, Syracuse basketball loses at SMU 77-75. I'm Jackson Holzer. This is Locked On Syracuse. And coming up, we're going to talk about how Syracuse blew another lead. So stick with me here on Locked On Syracuse. Get the supplies you need from the site made for the skilled trades, Supply House. Whether you're in plumbing, HVAC, or electrical work, Supply House is the reliable way to order products online. Their easy-to-use website is packed with helpful resources and the latest product info to help you get the job done right. Plus, with a complete inventory of over 200,000 parts from 400 plus top brands, you'll find exactly what you need delivered fast from coast to coast. You need help with an order? Supply House offers expert support and industry-leading service, so you'll always talk to a real person. And for trade pros looking for an extra edge, their free Trade Master program offers exclusive perks like a dedicated phone line, free shipping, and discounts on every order. Thousands of skilled professionals are already taking advantage, and now it's your turn. Join the Trade Master program today at supplyhouse.com/TM and start ordering plumbing, HVAC, and electrical supplies with just a few clicks. Plus, use promo code SH5 for 5% off your first order. That's supplyhouse.com. This is Locked On Syracuse. I'm Jackson Holzer, and the Orange lose a heartbreaker at SMU 77-75. And folks, I'm quite broken from this Syracuse basketball team. So if you could be kind and just do me a quick favor, if you like this podcast, be sure to hit that like button and hit that subscribe button. It helps the channel grow and reach all Syracuse Orange fans. And plus, it's completely free. And it allows the channel to show up directly on your feed. And let's get back to talking about this game. All right. This is another blown lead for Syracuse basketball. 3 consecutive games, the Orange have had a double-digit lead at some point in the game, and they blew it. Syracuse basketball at one point in the second half against SMU tonight led by 12. I apologize. They only led by 12. It was off a Kyle Cuff left corner three-pointer that made it 63-51 with less than 12 minutes to go in the game. 63-51. Look, 1 blown lead is bad. 2 blown leads is bad enough. 3 blown leads, what the actual bleep are we doing? And I'm just going to choose to ignore the elephant in the room because I already made a podcast about my thoughts on the fact that they're going to give Adrian Autry most likely another year. So I cannot keep talking about it. I can't. But this is just another blown lead. It's insane. But it's not all on Autry. I'll tell you why, okay? Trust me, I'm not going to sit here and try to defend him and make him seem like he's John Wooden all of a sudden, but okay. Syracuse basketball and free throw shooting late in games. JJ Starling draws a foul with 2:25 to go in the game. And Syracuse basketball at this point is up by 2. And he goes 1 for 2 at the free throw line. Okay, it happens. You go 1 for 2. On the next possession on defense, Eddie Lampkin doesn't provide any help defense. And so SMU pulls within 1. SMU on their next possession on offense ties the game because they go 1 for 2 from the free throw line. Fine. We're tied again, 73-73. Syracuse calls timeout with 1:24 to go, and they get a nice play. Eddie Lampkin is in the right post. He nearly gets an and one. Misses it, but you know what? He goes to the free throw line. 1:24 to go. It's a tie game. And he goes 1 for 2. Notice something here? JJ Starling 1 for 2. Eddie Lampkin 1 for 2. SMU then takes the lead. They go up 75-74. But Syracuse responds. Jaquan Carlos, he goes to the rim. He gets fouled with 27.9 seconds left. He's at the free throw line for 2 shots. And wouldn't you guessed it, he goes 1 for 2 at the free throw line. I don't care that SMU also stinks at free throw shooting. SMU, by the way, you want to know what they did from the free throw line? 13 of 27. 13 of 27. That was SMU. And they still lost. I'm looking at it right now. And Syracuse basketball did not have a field goal in the last 5 minutes and 12 seconds. How is that possible? They were scoring almost at will all game long. Now I got to get into some criticism because I guess I've moved to the anger portion of my grief from this team. And I got to start with JJ Starling. I've said this before on the podcast, and I will say it again. Why does he take so many threes? Why? Who's telling him to take all these three-pointers? And for those that aren't looking at the stat sheet, I'll read it to you. JJ Starling, 10 points. All right, not a great night for him. 3 of 17 from the field. Ugh, not very good. 3 of 17 from the field. Ugh, that's stinky. 1 of 10 from the three-point line. 1 for 10. Is JJ Starling Steph Curry, where you just have to kind of accept that that game is going to happen every once in a while, even from an elite shooter? Is he? No, he's not. He's not. He's not a good shooter, period. JJ Starling heading into this game was shooting 27.9% from three. This is statistically a terrible three-point shooter. He's not even an average three-point shooter. You know where JJ Starling is best? He's lightning fast. You ever see him move up and down the floor? He's like a blur. And if you've ever watched him in person, it's even more impressive. Him going up and down the floor. When he turns on the jets, it's so difficult to stop him. But my goodness, if you're just going to let him shoot threes the whole time, I mean, you got him. Because he can't shoot a lick. He's terrible at shooting. He can't shoot. He's not even a good free throw shooter, by the way. 71.4% this season. He went 3 of 4 today, so I guess it goes a little bit up, but that doesn't really matter. So I guess it'll be 71.5% when the calculations are in. 1 for 10 from the free throw line, or not from the three-point line. Who is telling him to shoot all these threes? It just doesn't work. He's not a good shooter. Another thing that I got to gripe at is Lucas Taylor, but not at Lucas Taylor. See, Lucas Taylor had 13 points. He was 5 of 7 from the field, 3 of 4 from the three-point line. He had 16 minutes of game action. That's it. And I'm not even a big Lucas Taylor fan. I'll be quite honest with you. I'm not. But he had it going tonight when he was on the floor. And then I had to double check because maybe I missed something. Maybe he was in foul trouble. You know, that happens, and that is a reasonable excuse. Hey, he's in foul trouble. We had to sit him. So I looked at the fouls, and Lucas Taylor only had 2 fouls. So why did he only play 16 minutes tonight? Clearly, he had it going. In fact, there was a moment in this game, very early in the game. If you all watched this game, which shout out to those who are actually watching these games, particularly these ones late at night. I mean, bravo to you all. I mean, if you're not watching, I understand. It's completely okay. Like, it's okay. I get it. But if you are watching, I mean, salute to you. Bravo. I mean, you are a diehard of diehards. See, for me, it's my job. I have to watch these games. For you who are watching and listening, you don't. You make a choice. So shout out to you if you're watching. And you probably remember this moment. It was in the first half, and there was a scary moment during this game. It was 18-10 Syracuse. And JJ Starling gets in some sort of collision. And he gets hit in the head neck area. And it forces him to leave the game for a few minutes. And I was expecting the worst, to be honest with you. I thought he might have been concussed. I thought he might have suffered an injury to his face, but He only missed a few minutes of game action. Like, he returned in the game. And as much as I was just criticizing him, you would rather have him on the floor than not. And you never want to see a player go down, no matter who it is. I never wish injury upon anyone. But trust me, this relates to Lucas Taylor, okay? Lucas Taylor was on fire early. He had 11 points in the first few minutes of this game. He was knocking down threes left and right. I was thinking, like, this is a Lucas Taylor legacy game. This was a huge bounce back after the dud he had against Virginia Tech. So J.J. Starling has to miss a few minutes of game action. The Orange are up by 8 points. And Adrian Autry decides to take Lucas Taylor out as well. He's rolling. Your best guard is out for the time being. And yet he decides to still take out Lucas Taylor when he's got the hot hand. Well, of course it doesn't work. SMU outstores Syracuse by 10 points in the next few minutes of the game. And then all of a sudden they charge ahead. That is just a baffling substitution right there. Is there a defense to that? I don't know. I don't know. But I charted it. I looked it up. It was a 10-point swing. Actually, not 10-point swing. SMU outscored Syracuse by 10 to take a lead by the time Lucas Taylor re-entered the game. That's how you blow a lead. What if they had kept Lucas Taylor in the game? Maybe they don't get outscored by 10. Maybe they only get outscored by a few points and they're still ahead. And that changes everything. It's just silly. It really is. I'd love to hear from you in the comments section below. This stinks. Not doing the podcast. I love doing the podcast. It just stinks that the team stinks. And I can't wait for this team to one day be good. I can't tell you when they're going to be good, but one day they will be. Just mathematically speaking, they kind of have to be at some point. So Syracuse basketball loses at SMU 77-75 in a heartbreaker. Coming up, I guess we'll talk about what's next for the Orange here on Locked On Syracuse. All right, let's talk about what's next for Syracuse basketball after their 77-75 heartbreaking loss at SMU. After the loss, they are now 12-18 overall and 6-13 in the ACC. But thank goodness they made the ACC tournament. They are not one of the 3 worst teams in the conference. Hip, hip, hooray. Let's all throw a party. But you know what? Before we get to the conference tournament, there is one more game left on the regular season schedule. It might matter somewhat for seeding, but honestly, I'm not quite sure. They're playing Virginia at 8 p.m. Eastern, and it's a home game. So hopefully Syracuse basketball can at least end the regular season on a positive note. And then, of course, it's off to the ACC tournament. I really wish that I could tell you all that, I think that Syracuse basketball can go on a run in the conference tournament. I really do. Because I want the team to win, and I tell you how I feel, but I want to be positive. Like, I don't want to be negative all the time about this team, but it's hard not to be. They're just bad. So in all likelihood, they're going to play a game Saturday, and they're going to either win or lose the game. And then they're going to start the ACC tournament, I believe, on March 11th. And they're probably going to be out pretty early. Maybe they win 1 game, 2 if they're lucky. but they're not winning 3. That's where we're at right now. This has been a season of seasons, and I think we honestly might have just hit the low point. Because it's not the fact that, they kept it close against SMU. Like, I can't just be positive about that because it's just the way they lost. The fact that they blew another lead. The fact that they had so many chances down the stretch to win this game, and yet they still don't win. They're just not a good basketball team. Players, coaches. I think I can't speak for you. I can speak for myself. I'm getting to the point where I'm just ready for the season to be over. I'm ready for it to be over. And I never really thought I would ever say that about a Syracuse basketball team. I've said that about Syracuse football. Trust me. Not this past season, but in prior seasons. Oh, yeah. I said that before because they weren't very good. But for Syracuse basketball, yeah, it's the worst team since 1969, ladies and gentlemen. It is. I'd love to hear from you and your thoughts on this game and what lies ahead for Syracuse basketball in the comments section below. And if you want to put the 3 words in the comment section below, first word begins with fire. I get it, but I've already accepted that he's coming back. So that's that for this post-game reaction podcast. I apologize if you were looking for a more X's and O's breakdown, but I just couldn't give it to you on this one. I couldn't. Thank you for making Locked On Syracuse your first listen today. And for your second listen, you can check out the Locked On College Basketball Podcast with Isaac Shade and Andy Patton. It's March basketball, and you can be the most informed college basketball fan right now. Speaking of information, Syracuse basketball, not very good. You can find Locked On College Basketball on YouTube or wherever you get your podcasts. Tomorrow on the podcast, for Thursday, this is technically the Wednesday podcast. So for Thursday's podcast, we're going to stay talking about basketball. And we are going to talk about the transfer portal and some of the lessons that I think we can all learn from the portal over the last couple of years. And hopefully we can all learn from it. And by we, I mean Syracuse can, and build a better team for next season. So that is it for this post-game reaction podcast. Thank you all so much for watching. Thank you all so much for listening. If you like this podcast, be sure to hit that like button. And if you really enjoy the podcast, be sure to hit subscribe. Tell all your friends about Locked On Syracuse so this channel can grow and reach all Syracuse Orange fans. And I will see you all again soon.